2026 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order at 6:30. Mr. Pinio, do we have any need for a non-public?
Madam Chairperson, we do not.
Okay, first item on the agenda is a set of minutes. There's a set of minutes for October 22nd, 2024, and I'd like to thank our secretary who was on vacation. Somebody else was supposed to take the minutes, and she came back and listened to the tape and put these together. So thank you, Brenda Jarrett. Does anybody have any changes to the October 22nd minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
Move to approve the October 22nd, 2024 minutes.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Paul, a second by Brian. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Next set of minutes, February 5th. Does anybody have any changes or corrections?
I do.
Okay.
So under the first motion to approve the minutes of January 22nd, it said, Mr. Deshays votes no because he was involved with the petition warrant article, and I'd like to add, and some incorrect information was given at the meeting with regards to the 500 Forest Road Association private roadways.
Did you say that?
Yes.
You did? Pinky swear?
Yes.
All right.
No objection.
Any other corrections?
Yeah, page 2, the first reference to Deshays, it says, an attendant will be needed at the dock, so pleasure boaters do not dock there. It was other boaters.
Okay, yep.
It's fine.
That's all.
On that same page 2, it should read, State of New Hampshire accepts unanticipated donations in the amount above $10,000. And then later on, you get the correct amount. So that's one on page 4.
I'm good with it.
Okay. All right, I can't figure out my notes, so we'll forget about that one. All right, page 12. When we're down, let's see, where this 1, 2, it's the third time Mr. Randall is talking, and it says we'll have to review the numbers. I believe there are 22, and I think it should be on Forest Road so we know what we're talking about.
Where are you, Linda?
I'm on page 12, 1, 2, 3, the
Oh, I
third.
see. I got it.
And just put Forest Road in there so we know what we're talking about.
So just put Forest Road at the front. Regarding Forest Road, we'll
Yeah.
have to review that number?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other corrections or changes? Hearing none.
Move to approve is amended.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Paul, seconded by Brian. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All righty. I will open up the first public hearing. It is the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on February 19th, 2025 at their meeting that starts at 6:30 in the Great Hall of the Town Hall for the acceptance of unanticipated funds less than $10,000 in accordance with RSA 31:95-B. 3A, relative to the Wolfeboro Milfoil Committee to receive 2025 Exotic Aquatic Plant Control Grant from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Service, New Hampshire DES, for expenses incurred in the prevention of exotic species aquatic plant control in the amount up to $8,550. Alrighty. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak to it? Brian, you and I can talk about it. Amy Spagula of New Hampshire DES comes in at the end of each season and takes a look at Back Bay and decides how many days she feels we'll need to either hand pull or put in chemicals. And then we apply for a grant, and we are awarded $8,550, which will be half of whatever we spent.
And
Brian, do you want to add something?
We had a discussion about the bay, the docks, and everything has been really clean and good there since their extraction years ago. And then we talked about how there wasn't going to be need for chemicals this year because things seemed to be under control.
Yeah, and that was Back Bay. The docks in Wolfeboro Bay were the ones that had done a great job of being cleaned out.
Yep.
So, okay. Anybody? I don't see anybody in the audience. I'll close the public hearing. Board members, any questions?
So move to accept unanticipated funds less than $10,000 in accordance with RSA 31:95-B, Roman numeral 3A, relative to the Wolfeboro Milfoil Committee to receive a 2025 Exotic Aquatic Plant Control Grant from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services for expenses incurred in the prevention of exotic species aquatic plant control in the amount of up to $8,550.
I'll second that. Any further discussion?
Could I just get that amended to reflect my being able to sign the documents?
Yes.
All right, and to amend for Town Manager Jim Pinio to sign the documents.
And I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, I'll open up the next public hearing. The Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, February 19th, 2025, on or about 6:30 p.m. at the Wolfeboro Town Hall, 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, to consider the application for an issuance of an alcohol beverage permit to the Lakes Region Curling Association for their end-of-season ceremony on March 30th, 2025 at the Abenaki Ski Lodge on 390 Pine Hill Road from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Mike Turner. I'm the current president of the Lakes Region Curling Association, and this is an event that we typically have at the end of each of our curling seasons. Usually there are no minors there. It's personal use. Each member that wishes brings some wine or beer, so it's actually minimal use. We've been doing this for several years, and it really didn't have any issues. Our liability insurance has been filed with the town, Parks and Rec, so I would appreciate your approval of this permit.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak to this public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Board members, can I have a motion?
Move to approve an alcoholic beverage permit to the Lakes Region Curling Association for their end-of-season ceremony on March 30th, 2025 at the Abenaki Ski Lodge on 390 Pine Hill Road from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And by the way, this was very nicely filled out, full and complete.
There you go. Second again.
All righty. I have a motion by Brian, second by Paul. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along here tonight. Next item is the bulk vote. We had one weekly manifest, which was February 14th. It was $264,801.06. We have property tax abatement and refund, and we have an intent to cut or timber. Does anybody have any issue with any of the items in the bulk vote? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the bulk vote A through C.
Do I-
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Dave, second by Brad. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All righty. Next item on the agenda, it's under new business, commercial vehicle landing permit, Big Sandy 2. This is the second time this had come before us. We had 2 permits the last time. I went in to talk to Amy because I still couldn't make any sense out of it, and we realized they weren't counting the 2 landings. They were only counting 1 because a landing has 2. A round trip has 2 landings. That's what I was trying to get to. So, through that conversation, they felt that they would do 10 trips or 20 landings. When we totaled it all up, they paid a little more than they needed, and Amy was talking to them. I don't know whether she plans to refund it, but that conversation was had. So I guess this is a YMCA camp. They come in 1 day a week. They sit there. They let I think it's counselors go out. They may be in the town for 2 hours, and then they also may do a special event in October. So does anybody have any questions, concerns? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
Move that we approve the commercial vessel landing permit for Big Sandy 2.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion by Dave, a second by Brian. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All righty. Next item on the agenda is Park and Recreation, proposed program fee increases.
So a couple months back, there was a conversation regarding use of Foss Field. We didn't have any real rates for full-day usage for pickleball events. Christine went through it. She also revisited some of her other fees, and she's here to explain where they're coming from with their proposal. Christine?
Christine Collins, Parks and Rec Director. Thank you. So we were tasked with looking at the pickleball courts just because we have this event coming up. And because we did that, we took the opportunity to look at all of our program fees. What I have on here is specifically the ones we're looking at are the general fund ones. Some of the revolving ones we are looking at too, but ones where we have partnerships, it's more of a conversation. So sailing would be an example of working with them with the current rates, because that's part of the revolving, which is money in, money out. So we're trying to make sure we're covering the cost of that program. So we went through all of our programs. Looking at them, we seem to be in the ballpark of roughly where other Parks and Rec departments are. We might be a little off. I will say when we were doing it, we offer a lot more than a lot of the other departments. There were some things that we weren't able to compare because they just don't offer it. So we were pleased to see that we have a lot of things that we offer. The way we took the approach, because we were pretty much on the money with some of the programs, just a little bit off, we took the approach to increase all programs by $5 across the board to ensure that we can continue to provide high-quality programs for our community. With the rising costs of staff, equipment, and facilities, it's necessary to readjust the fees at times. And we're hoping by applying a small, consistent increase to all programs, we keep it accessible for everyone. And it's an approach that's predictable to avoid larger fees and things that they can't plan for. So we wanted to do it now so we could have it in our new brochure. So we think because it's so close to the next time when people sign up, which is roughly April 1st, it gives them time to be able to afford it and not have to do that planning ahead of time. So $5 across the board for fees. For the pickleball courts, we did a little bit more research to see what other facilities were doing. Most of them have, like we have, first come, first serve, and they're not renting them out, but a few of them are. And so we came up with the fee of $10 for residents per hour per court and $20 for non-residents per hour per court. And that seemed like that's what was typical when they were renting it to outside users.
So that's just outside. I don't want people at home to think we're now
No,
going to
it's
hit.
always first come, first serve if you are individuals. When you come as a big group, that's when we have to have that discussion, because it's a whole group coming, and we need to figure out, they're not operating as an individual first come, first serve, it's 400 people.
So could I go in and rent the courts for 2 hours for $20? Would you allow an individual to come do, I guess that's my question. I don't want to wait, I don't want first come, first serve, I want to
No,
go.
I think if we were going to do that, wouldn't that be a special event permit, because it's open to the public? We're talking about if it's a special event, because other than that, it's open to the public, first come, first
Okay,
serve.
so this is based on special event?
Yes, I would
Okay,
say.
thank you.
And Christine, is there any cap to the amount of hours? I want to come in and rent it for the whole day.
At this point, I don't think so, because as we know, the pickleball tournament that's on the table is a 4 or 5 day event. And do you charge for the fact that they are setting up, not necessarily using it for the event, but nobody else can use it either? And I think the answer is yes.
Yes.
If it's,
We cap it or we don't cap it?
we don't cap. I mean, it's really, they're coming to you for that special event permit. It's up to the selectmen to say, are we willing to close down that facility to the whole town for an extended amount of period?
I'm thinking about the episodic person that says, I want to take first come, first serve. I want to rent it for the entire day.
Well, Linda just asked that question, and I think the answer is, if it's a special event permit, that's when you can rent it by
Right.
the hour, but if it's an individual, you can't, you just use it,
You
you
can only
wait in
use,
line.
you wait in line.
Well, yeah.
You still have to pay.
No. This is for people who are making
Sorry, I was
profit or they are making money off of our facility, right?
yeah,
They're
yeah.
charging fees to users
yeah.
and they're using it.
All right, my bad.
Or you want to do a special event, and you have to be a nonprofit. I get a special event permit to use the courts for 3 hours.
Got it.
Well, it's going to cost me $30, right?
Yeah, if a
Okay.
church group or somebody.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
or the Kingswood Youth Center wants to.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
So
Okay.
here was my only question.
Yes.
I love percentages. You know where I'm going with this.
Where you going?
Instead of $5 for something that is a $25 fee and $5 for something that went from 15 to 20, I would have, and I'm okay with this, but maybe next time, look at things and say, what can we do for a percentage? It will maybe average out to $5 each or something, but then that way, because if you do $5 on a $15 and then $5 on a $30, you're not increasing them equally, do you know what I mean? So that's just the way I am.
I looked at it the same way, and the one that kind of stuck out for me was the day camp, and I also looked kind of where other people are charging, and to me, that would have been one I might have done 10 to, because it is more expensive, there's more equipment.
Yeah.
So,
I think for me, it was just a good baseline to get everything in one place, because we haven't had that in a hot minute. So I think this is the start with working with Casey for the future of getting all the fees on one place, having a date that this is when we adjusted it, this is where we're at, and where do we go from here? That's what my thought process was, is we don't really have, the next step is like looking at Abenaki, looking at Pop Whalen, because we have fees that are on forms that might not necessarily match when was the last time that was updated. So I'd like to have it all, updated, and we can say, okay, this is when we updated it moving forward.
So the comment about percentages, you have some per unit rates that are bigger, and just pushing $5 on top of those is a big percentage lift, whereas you have small per unit rates, you push $5 on top of those, it's different. So I'm comfortable that we should look at it. My only thing is I would like to consider that we keep it at whole dollar amounts, so we're not making change.
yes,
Right.
yes.
That's a good idea.
We typically try to do that to
So
make
we
it
raise a
easy.
$5 rate by 10%, that's $5.50. I think we stop making pennies, we're about to stop making quarters, and that's my only thing.
We always do whole
But
dollars.
we should look at it both ways. I mean, because this could be averaging, it could disadvantage us by just $5. If we want to get in and start, touching these things, the whole dollar numbers or percentages, it might be a good thing to look at. But I'm kind of with him. I'll
And you
go along with it.
do percentages and then just round up or down. If it's
There
59
you go.
cents, it goes up. If
Yeah.
it's 49 cents, it goes down.
Sure, there you go.
Call it a wash.
I have a question. We have the Big Air. Has that been free? Okay, so what I would like before we voted in, that we see the new rates.
Okay.
So, I'm here, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, you're seeing how much we would get with the increase versus the individual, yes. I
Yeah,
understand.
and
Okay.
then, and we only want to know the ones we're increasing.
Okay.
Because then, there's no point of, because then we can make a motion, say, okay, does that make sense to other members of the board, that we get it, so we know exactly what we're doing?
So we'll have a column, 3 columns maybe, that says event, proposed rates,
Current rate.
current proposed, boom, all right? And then you can, in the background, figure out how much, because I was going to ask you how
The
much
percentage.
anticipated revenue you think you're going to get, but you really
That's
can't
what they
do it.
did right there.
That's what she did. I guess what I'm wanting,
Where is it?
she can do the different columns, but I want to be able to
I
say,
agree.
okay, we make a motion on this memo, column A are the new rates that were, so there's no confusion, because I think that's what this, does that work for other people?
And this is very telling. It does show that we have a lot more programs than a lot of communities around us.
That's true. The question then is utilization, which is a different discussion for another time.
I will say that the programs on here are programs that are well utilized. We do a lot of, if we don't have more than 2 people, we have to cancel a program. We don't really run a program for 2 people. So we try to do our due diligence to keep people abroad. So it's always a good idea that if you see a program you want to sign up for, register for it. If you see that there's a wait list, sign up for it, because that helps us dictate if we need to add a program or move a program or see if we can try to help people.
Yeah, and some of the programs that we may not have in some of the upper groups, like soccer, is because we have organizations that have come in. We used to run a whole bunch more of those, but then
They took over and then we lost all. We've tried to do the 4th through 6th grade and we can't even get enough to field a team, so then they can't play games, so it just doesn't
Yeah,
work.
and I want the public to know that's why that is missing. Though some people will say, oh, we're missing nowhere near the number of programs, and part of it is
Yeah.
the NIC and organizations are coming in. Any other comments by anybody? Can we put this back on for the next and get the list?
Yeah, I just
But-
have one housekeeping issue.
Yep.
And that is the pickleball
Yes.
fees, because we have the Lakes Region Pickleball Group in limbo, and we're supposed to have this information
For
on the
them.
agenda tonight. It's on the agenda tonight. That way they can get their permit approved. So I don't know if you want to address that this evening, or if you want to push it out until the first meeting in March.
Board members?
So should we make a motion to approve the pickleball rates?
Yeah.
And my thoughts on the pickleball rates would go the same fee structure for the basketball court.
That's what I read.
Yes.
You two dedicate, the twos meant for each, So if you did just the pickleball courts, it would be less expensive than if they did, or is it
No, but
because
if they're
they're doing?
using the basketball courts in conjunction with the pickleball, they would be charged the same rate.
So if I wanted to come in and just do the pickleball courts,
Then we wouldn't charge you for the basketball courts. We just
No.
charge you for the amount of pickleball courts.
so is it a certain amount per?
So it's $10 per hour per court for residents.
And
$20 per
that's
hour
what
per
comes
court.
up to the 800? Is that 8 hours? I'm trying to figure out how.
Yeah, it just depends how many hours they're booking it for. I think they were doing till 10 o'clock at night, weren't they? They were using it till the light, so I think it was like morning till evening.
That's why I'm having the problem with what you do. I understand 800 for the whole complex, but that's that one group. If another group came in and said, I'm going to just do the pickleball courts, and I want it all day, is that 800 too?
No,
No,
well, you would,
'cause they're
well, I guess we
renting.
would figure out how many courts they're using and multiply it by the $10 an hour, $20 an hour fee.
Okay,
right?
so you're going to do it by the hourly rate if they do not use the whole complex?
Correct.
So where's your break even? Meaning, if it's 800 for the whole complex, how many courts, how many hours, are we being fair charging both ways?
Well, I guess that's kind of where I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And it says 10 and 20?
So it's 10 for resident, 20 for non-resident, right?
Right.
That's what they did.
Okay.
So I understand it all, but that's the only piece that I didn't think about, and shame on me, until just now. Is it comparable?
Or is it
One-
arbitrary?
Yeah, well, so if somebody comes in and rents the whole thing and they spend 800, and if they rent 3/4 of it and pay hourly, are they paying 600? Because that's what they should be paying. You know what I
Right.
mean?
That's
So-
kinda-
So you'd have to figure the numbers and make sure it works. and
So
they just-
it would be 40 court hours is what you would need.
Yeah.
So I don't, how many courts do you have, Christine?
So it's, I think when we did it, we were doing the tennis courts as a, it's one, but you're actually getting 2 pickleball courts on it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 tennis courts, right? And then 2 dedicated pickleball courts, which actually,
Well,
that's-
when
that's
they
10
do the
courts.
tournament, they do pickleball courts all the way across.
Yeah.
10 courts.
And of course.
So that's 10 courts, and if they're out-of-towners, it would be $20 each, so that'd be $200 for an hour. And if they did
$200 total
$200, that's per hour.
per hour,
Per hour, and if they did 8 hours, they're $1,600,
$1,600.
which is a lot.
It doesn't quite,
but I think we would take the tennis courts. I know you're getting, for pickleball, you're getting more, you're getting 2 pickleball courts on 1 tennis court, but we would charge it as 1 tennis court.
So it only charges.
see, again here, I think we need more explanation. Because
Okay.
here we are, we're
Because it
saying,
will be-
do we
because-
do this, do we do that?
I'm sorry, I was on vacation and I had
That's
BoS
okay.
step in for me, so I'm kind of, so it seems like they were saying it would be $800 for the whole facility, but that would be too less if we're charging $10 to $20 an hour for courts, correct? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, how many hours are they renting
Again.
it for when they have a whole day? So if they're doing a 4-day event, how many hours are we attributing a day to it? Is
We'll bring it back
Is it
March
8 hours,
4th,
10 hours,
March
12
5th.
hours?
Yeah, so if you do $10 a day, how many hours?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
so each one of those sections should probably have some kind of a amount.
Okay.
We'll bring it back March 5th.
March 5th, is that when it is? Mm-hmm. Okay. But at least it gives them a ballpark to look at, is what we're looking at.
Well, yeah,
anyways.
I think we are, and I think we told them the beginning of March, so I think we're still
Okay.
in the time frame we were telling them.
If you want, I don't mind coming sitting with you sometime for an hour and helping you play with numbers. I like numbers.
Sounds great, Brian, I can't wait. I'll call you.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the approval of water and sewer rates, Public Works.
Here's this piece of paper.
Steve Randall, Public Works. Good evening. We are here to revisit the water and sewer rate adjustment. Back on the 5th, we had Underwood here to present their report and the suggested rate increase for water and sewer department. They proposed a 2% increase for the water and a 7% increase for the sewer. And I am here to see if we can get a motion to approve that, so we can get that going in the system to go on the March 1st bills.
We were emailed, I can't remember which day, whether it was Tuesday or Monday, a draft of how the new rates would look, starting effective March 1, billed April 1.
Yep, and I apologize, I didn't get that attached in my thing I sent last week, so I'm sorry that didn't get to you by last Friday. So what you'll see on that draft is what the new rates will look programmed in with the 2% and 7% respectively.
And so if you, at the 2%, the water rate will go up 24 cents and the sewer rate will go up $1.33 per gallon over 1,500 gallons. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Board members, anybody have any questions, concerns?
So the only thing, I'm okay with this, the rate increases. What I would still like to see, Steve, if I could, is some kind of theoretical projection, and I know you were going to reach out to him to find out what we would have to do to get the number, and I just put an arbitrary percent out, up to 80%, so that 80% of it was covered by user fees.
So I'd be more than happy to address that.
Yeah.
If I could ask, could we do this?
Yep.
And then I can speak
Okay.
to that.
Board members, anybody have any questions, concerns? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept a 2% rate for water and a 7% rate for sewer? So it'll be, for water, it'll be $12.44, and for sewer, it'll be $20.37.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Paul, Dave, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Oh, can we have that effective immediately?
It'll be a March,
March 1st.
it'll be as this, okay,
As is written?
as stated in the attached
Perfect.
flyer.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so to answer your question, I reached out to Underwood. I had a conversation with them. They gave me back a scope and fee on what that would take to do what you asked. I have not authorized that yet because there is a price tag attached to it. So I guess from my perspective is that something that you really want to do now? Or is
No, I
that
don't
something
want-
we can wait
Yeah.
until the next go-around of this process and I can have them work it into that model?
So I was hoping that they could do it without charging us because
That's never gonna happen.
they have all the data.
That will never happen.
So I guess it would come in with their next tranche of information that we get. The other thing that I was thinking after looking at the presentation and talking and whatnot is I'm watching, based on their projections, the amount covered by users going down and the amount being taken on by the general fund going up. And what I'm looking for, eventually, I hope that we as a town can look at this and say, okay, let's create a percentage. Let's say this, that we are going to make sure that the rates always cover 60% of the cost of the sewer.
Well, wait a second, let's be clear on what we're talking about here, all right? You're talking about capital projects. Right now, on these fees, it will cover the operations.
Correct.
So the operations are there. What you're asking is that in that calculation of rate, we'll no longer take it all out of taxation, that we now will be taking some of the capital projects and having the sewer users pay.
Yeah, and
Well, people have to understand that's what you're talking about.
And the rates do cover all operations right now?
That's what we just got.
And I would like to point out the reason why that number is changing is because we are going to be doing capital projects in the
Correct.
sewer where more so going forward than what was going backwards. So we are going to add in these every year now going forward. That is making that number change.
Yeah. And I think that we should find a number, find a percentage that we think is fair for users and for general taxpayers. And by the way, there are people that pay both. When you're on the sewer, you're paying your sewer rate, which is paying for, and then you're also paying in your general taxation. So they are paying.
No.
They're not getting double taxation, but they are paying for the maintenance.
They're paying for the
They're paying-
operation
They're paying for
in,
their usage of the
Correct.
sewer system. So
Correct.
that is a separate thing than the
Correct.
taxes versus the general
Correct.
fund.
But we have to, I want a percentage, I would love a percentage, so we know that people with the general fund, with people paying their regular taxes, that it hits a certain percentage and it doesn't keep dropping. Are we gonna get to a point where, for the total cost of the sewer, 50% of all expenses come from the rate users and 50% comes from general taxation?
Well, let's get back to its capital projects, all right? That's what we're talking about. That's what in 2025, when we did the special meeting, well, let me do it this way. In 2003 and 2004, it used to come out of the sewer fund. We did not deal with our affluent disposal. We had out-of-control I&I, and we got administrative order that stopped all new hookups. We had to purchase land, we had to put in a new affluent disposal, we had to address our compost, and we had to put a plan for the future, long-term for our plant. We had a special meeting, and at that special meeting, there was a motion by Kurt Dietzer to do this 50-50, which you're talking about, and that got voted down. So since then, all the warrant articles were clearly stating that it was coming out of taxation. And even at that period of time, and I found the Wolfeboro Citizens and Taxpayers Association flyer, and for 2027, which was the $6 million one, and they asked people to vote yes on some things, no on the other, and it says the wastewater treatment plant system, yes, $6.3 million to be bonded and paid by taxpayers. So people all understood when that change came. We went out, and before we did the Pop Whalen, we put on a warrant article, and we asked them whether they would start picking up the capital costs of the Pop Whalen, and we got a yes. And then we did the percentage there. We asked, if you want to put a warrant article out and ask whether we want to make that change, that's how we should do it. Not spend some money to turn around and get some kind of, long-term projection. I think we ask the taxpayers and voters whether they want to do it. This has been a community that's taken care of each other. We have a lot of social services on that line. We have the hospital, we have the Children's Center, we have Christian Ridge, we have the Ledges, we have Harriman Hill, all which we're trying to get workforce housing. And I just think that we need to send it out, because I think there are a lot of people in this community that have no problem doing something for the better good of the community, even though they don't get direct benefit from it. So I think if you really want to make this change, let's not spend money, let's go right out and ask.
Yeah, and I agree that the sewer system is a benefit for the whole community. But in a lot of communities in the state, and under state RSA, capital is supposed to be funded by rate users, especially if you're using a capital reserve fund for your for collecting money to spend on your capital projects for water and sewer funds.
Well, we can send this as something you brought to us tonight, and that needs to go to legal, okay? We've been doing this for years. What we're talking about, I don't care what other communities do. I want to know what our community wants to do. And if they're willing to support the sewer system and pay for it, then that's how we go forward. And I think
So a
we
warrant
can
article is a great idea.
I have no problem doing that, because then we know what they want.
Yep, absolutely.
Me?
Yep.
Thank you. So I think that, and Casey, you can tell me if I'm incorrect, or Sam, I think that all capital we raise for this enterprise fund is general obligation bonds. Okay, so I'm sorry?
Or state revolving fund.
Or the state revolving loan fund. But at the end of the day, we pledge the town to backstop that enterprise fund. So we own the debt. The town owns the debt. Taxpayers own the debt. We don't have sewer bonds. We don't have water bonds. We own the debt. All right, that's a data point I just want to put on the table. Let me suggest maybe you think about an approach. It might be helpful. There's a concept in utilities called shared costs and common costs. Okay, and I'm sure your consultancy will understand those costs that are shared, costs that are common. Suggest that you take the rate, whatever it is, and do a layer cake on the rate. What makes up the rate? Now I'm going to make up names. It could be the capital cost. It could be, do we do depreciation? Do we do depreciation? No. If we do? Okay, but depreciation. It could be billing and collection. And so what you do is you build yourself a little layer cake. Okay? You put that on the table at some point in the future, and you look at it and you say, okay, now let's pass it through this shared and common cost filter. What should be shared? What should be common? And then we go back to, I think, what Linda's trying to say is, do we create a situation where we are moving more towards, where Brian might be saying, we're more towards the taxpayer shouldering this and not the ratepayer? Or are we moving more towards a larger subsidy or not? Those are potentially political conversations, but I would approach it by layer cake the rate, understand what's in there, understand the concept of shared and common costs, and then just put it on the table and we look at it. That would be my recommendation, okay? Shouldn't be hard to do, because, now I'm going to state an opinion, shouldn't be hard to do because we probably know those numbers inside this house. We don't have to write a check to somebody outside this house to give us those data.
Well, don't we get that when we look at our audit?
Yeah.
I
right.
pulled out
That's
the
why I say it shouldn't be
2003
hard
audit to try to check
We don't have
anything.
to write a check to somebody to give us those data. It comes out every July or whenever the audit comes out.
Yep.
It's probably someplace else too, right? So that would be my approach. Shared common cost, build a layer cake, look at it and see, do we want to increase, keep the subsidy, or decrease the subsidy?
Yeah.
That's it.
And I think the other part is the
more.
number of accounts it falls on and the size of the,
Right.
I think you put it out to the voters.
That's
to
the
people.
end game, but I think I agree with you.
Well,
The end game is you put it out to
well-
the voters, but you got to do the homework so we don't just frisbee something out and say, flip a coin,
Well,
decide.
we just look at the audit. When the audit comes in, the numbers are there. We can do it from that easily.
And the last funding piece, Paul, that you didn't mention was our capital reserve fund for the sewer department. That's another mechanism.
Does that
we
go
use
into
for
the
funding.
rate, though?
No.
Yeah, so it doesn't go into the rate. That's kind of what we keep out on the kitty, the piggy bank. We're talking about changing the rate in a way that maybe it continues a subsidy or it doesn't. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
Capital reserve, I think, is a
Well,
separate,
but
it is a separate
but
conversation.
the capital reserve should be part of it, because it's how we save for bigger projects.
Not in the
That's all capital. It's the same thing. So that would be part of the calculations.
Can I ask a question of Casey?
Casey, you want to come on up?
Or Sam? Is capital reserve in the
Let-
rate? So it is in the rate?
He's talking about there's one for the wastewater treatment
Right.
plant, which comes out of taxation, which is for the sewer fund.
But, yes, I believe it is baked in because we do give it to Underwood.
So it is in the rate?
I believe it is,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
I
So
mean-
that's just another element of the layer cake. It's a depreciation, incurred debt, capital reserve, all of that stuff, and then you ask the question.
I'd like to
how
have
much of
that
shared, how much of
checked.
that is common?
I'd like to have whether that capital reserve is in the rate. I'd like that checked.
On page 2 of the Underwood report, they give a projected model for sewer expenditures, and it talks about debt, and it talks about the projected capital outlay, and it says there's none there. So I do believe that the wastewater treatment plant, as given by Brian earlier today, indicates that it's 7 cents on the tax rate Therefore, it is on the tax rate, and it's not baked into the rates, I don't believe.
So it's on the tax rate, but it's not in the sewer rate, is that?
Correct.
Okay, I was asking, is it in the sewer price?
Right.
The unit price for, a unit of sewer?
So we pay the bond payment, and so sewer actually pays the bond payment, but then there's a transfer over. That is where I was telling you it's not in there. It's only
Okay.
the bond debt payment.
So does this building a layer cake make sense to you?
Oh, I'm going to buy some aprons.
We really don't need that, now, do we?
No, it does.
Buttercream, please.
But
It does, and
and then you
Linda,
understand shared and common costs, and then you can sit there and go, well, the building collection is a shared cost, or it's a common cost.
and Linda makes sense. I mean, half the cake is baked in the audit report. I mean, you could break it down a little more.
So we don't have to write a check to anybody to get those data.
Well, we already do. We already pay that fee. I pay the auditors.
No, I'm talking to the other guy.
Yes, we do not need to pay anybody a
That's
study.
Thank you.
And especially if you go into the warrant article or building the cake, but if you do ask Underwood, they did quote us like $5,000.
And the board has no problem taking the document I gave today to legal to make sure?
Put that in.
What you're telling us, you think we're doing something illegal?
No,
By what, well, okay,
new business.
Brian, then if we're not, and it doesn't make any difference, why would we send it to legal? You're questioning the legality of what we're doing, okay? And so that is why we would send it to legal. Am I correct?
So we're going to discuss that in new business? Or are we discussing it now?
We just discussed it now.
Well,
No, I thought we were
think-
discussing it at the next meeting.
No, this is.
No, this is, I think we discussed that under other business, or you want to finish the discussion here? I need to know from you two guys, the big mouths are down this end.
Hey, put a lid on.
Don't worry about it.
Do you either of you have any comments or concerns about that paper he handed out about the RSAs that questioned whether you can have a capital reserve fund for sewer come out of taxation, is my understanding, as I quickly looked at it beforehand.
I'll just say, Linda, I'm on the same page as
Thanks,
you
Sam.
here. We've, ever since I've been on the board here and even prior to that, the capital projects have always been done by by the taxpayers, and the ratepayers funded the operation of the system. I don't think there's anything, it's illegal. I don't think there's any RSA that says you can't do that. Otherwise, DRA wouldn't have allowed us to be putting these warrant articles together. So
What I get,
I'm comfortable the way it is.
Okay.
If you want to send this out to have, legal review it, I'm okay with that. But I'm of the opinion that, we're okay the way we're doing it.
Dave?
Yeah, I think we've already sent this to legal and everything else. The way it's written is fine with me.
So the only-
Paul? I'm not done, I'm going down, I'll get to you, Brian. Paul?
I think I think our colleague is asking a legitimate question. It's a checkbox question. And if it takes an opinion of one of our lawyers to say, what you're doing is consistent, great. Not consistent, great. If it's not consistent, what do we have to do to amend it? Great. It eliminates doubt. And so if it's an hour of lawyer's time, I'm comfortable with that.
I guess my concern here is that it arrived at the meeting. For me to make, I haven't been able to read any, their RSAs, I really think something like this needs to come in beforehand, is my concern, because you're there, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different RSAs here with this on the top, and, to sit down and then to make a decision on whether we need to send it to legal, I would like to, how about this? Let us read it, let me put it on the next agenda, and make that decision. Is that okay?
Yep. So
Okay.
we have to also remember, to Brad's point, we're a Dillon rule state. And a Dillon rule state means that we're allowed to do what the state tells us we can do by RSAs. Everybody says, well, I don't see anything that disallows us from doing something. That's not the way New Hampshire works.
Right.
New Hampshire works that you are given permission to do something. If you're not given permission to do it, you can't do it.
Yeah.
And
I
I do
agree.
look at this and I say, okay, maybe, because I am not a constitutional expert, and I went through and did the best I could to find this information. And I did check with some people at DRA and some other sources. My concern is I've come across other things. Our police department recommended their warrant articles for capital appropriations for 20 years. That was against state RSA. And that made it through DRA every single time they bought anything. So I'm not 100% certain that DRA catches everything all the time. When I asked them about this, they said, do you know how many thousands of money warrant articles come through us, and we have a staff of 3 or 4 that looks at every single one? So,
Linda?
Brian, I'll finish with Brian, then I'll do Paul. I absolutely understand we only can do what the state lets us do. I just think that people have to have enough time to read it to understand it. Paul?
I'll withdraw my, my thought on burning an hour of lawyer time, but I'd like to be, so that we can do this crisply, could I ask that you just precisely put your question to the table now as to what you're looking for? Because Linda made a good point. There's a whole bunch of these things, and we're trying to stitch together different RSAs. That's fine. What precisely is the question you ask?
I would like to have a legal opinion to make sure that, and I could be wrong, and I'm not saying I'm right, I want a legal opinion to know that taking and putting money into a capital reserve fund for capital improvements on our sewer operations or our sewer capital is correct. So I would like
Is
a legal-
appropriate.
Is appropriate. I'd like a legal opinion to make sure.
Is legal.
Is legal.
Right. No, that's,
Correct.
that's what you're asking.
Correct.
So we should probably just write that down, get that in the minutes, and then take Brian's pieces of paper and judge whether there is sufficiency in terms of flipping that over to the lawyer and getting an answer.
I think that's,
Okay with
that's,
fine.
that's what I think makes
That's
sense. You know, and he may be right, it may be right, and if it is good, but I
Sure.
think we need to at least have enough knowledge to be able to read it, to have a good discussion. Okay, everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Next thing, fund balance follow-up from last meeting. Paul, I think this is you.
Yep. And actually, I want to thank Sam for sending it over to Amy. You know, I dug this up. I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. It's pretty self-explanatory. I believe it's a good primer for folks out there that want to understand fund balance. I would have no objection if we found this document on our town website inside of our financial financial department. That's all I had. I just wanted to make sure, because, again, I want to make sure we speak in common language so that we don't get all whammy-whammied here. So that's why I did it. It's just it's an FYI for everybody. I would recommend we put it on the town website. And if, Jim, if you have any objection to that after reading it, maybe we can talk about it again. If not, please put it on the website if you can.
And I had also found it and read it, and I think it's very good.
Yeah, it's simple.
You
Now,
know,
it's a little outdated. I'm sorry for interrupting. It's a little outdated. And when I say outdated, in here you're going to see some ideas of, GFOAs recommending a range of 5 to 15, DRAs 5 to 17. This is, appropriate fund balance. To me, and my colleague and I had a chat about this the other day, the question about what the right level of fund balance for this town should be, I believe, is a question of risk. What is it that we look forward to in terms of potential risk that would cause us to have to go into that rainy day fund, if that's the right word, and dig out some money? And, Brian, using his name, thinks that, kind of an averaging around 10 or something is a good place to be. Yeah. And I was the other night saying, 8 would be a good place to be. I think that's a separate discussion. It's a discussion about risk. But this is just for everybody to kind of understand what we got, and so with that, thank you, Linda.
What I found very interesting is it compared it to the private sector, where the private sector what uses the word working capital, the government used fund balance. So it's easy when you're talking about it to use the wrong word for the wrong entity. So I think it's good. I'm with Paul that we should put it, if we can, on the town website. And we've already passed FIN-007, which was the laying out of the percentages, and I think, we got the minimum, I think we have a target of 8.
Well, the only thing is that we've had 2 warrant articles that talk about 10.
No, it says up to 10.
It
Once it
does.
gets 10,
Yeah.
when you get more than 10,
I
you
know,
have
up to 10, but then that's anywhere from 1 until
Right, but
10.
that's only telling you what you should do when you get above 10. It doesn't tell you under 10 which should be the Board of Selectmen's target. And we've read that, I've read that a number of times.
And when I looked at the 2 bodies in the state of New Hampshire, and their percentage ranges, one from 5 to 17, and when I averaged them together, found the medians and averaged the medians together, it came out to 11. The taxpayers said in their things that when it goes above 10,
Correct.
we want money back. So I will read and say, common sense says to me that the taxpayers were saying that we should keep 10% in because they only wanted to return stuff
May I
over 10.
please? May I please? There are 2 different things happening here. So the fund balance policy that you approved in February, that is kind of saying this is the range from the 2 organizations.
Correct.
And it is outlining what DRA is doing. And DRA on the tax rate, actually on the 4th page of the tax rate, lays out. And they're telling you exactly what they think it should be. So this policy mimics what DRA is doing, and this town has always taken an 8% range, is what I was told. And I wrote down all the percentages. You've been 7, 10, 9, 7, 0, and 6.82. The other 2 warrant articles done in 2002 and 22, and if I'm wrong on the years, that's a completely different thing. That is saying that this board can use up to 10% of the reserve to offset the tax rate. And I see the 10 and 8, and you guys are, not you guys, excuse me. There's a lot of people doing the same thing. The 8 and the 10 are 2 completely different things. What I would like to recommend, the finance director and I come here in September after we get the audit report, we know what the fund balance is, before we set the tax rate, and you guys have committed to using some money. And I think that's where we lay out what DRA does, we lay out what you could do up to, which is the 10%, and then you can make an educated decision before you set the tax rate.
I think that would be good. It's not just for us, but it is also for the people, the citizens of the town, that we all understand what we're doing here.
Right, because I did hear a lot of inaccurate information at the deliberative session concerning the fund balance, so.
And I think that's what we're doing. It's important for the staff to educate the board, and while you educate us, we educate the public. And so I think that's a great
I think that's the right thing to
suggestion.
do.
So
we'll
I'd like to read Article 23 from the 2024 warrant. It says, reaffirm 2002 warrant article, surplus policies. It says, to see if the town will vote to reaffirm the 2002 warrant article 16 surplus policy. Each year, the town shall reduce the surplus general fund unassigned fund balance carried over from the prior year to an amount no greater than 10% of the operating budget.
Correct.
Voted
Okay.
the current year by applying the excess as fund balance to reduce taxes, and further said amount to reduce taxes shall be affirmed, disclosed, and voted by the Board of Selectmen at a regular board meeting.
Okay, so we did do that last year. I came to you. We made a recommendation to use 0. So we followed the bottom part of that. What that is saying is it's approximately 33 million was on the operating budget last year.
Yep.
So up to 10% said that you, as a board, could have used up to 3.3 million. We didn't have that, but that is what that warrant article is saying to offset the tax rate. But as somebody said, you have to be careful that you don't spike the tax rate up and down. That is saying up to 10% of the operating budget. The operating budget is 33 million.
No, it's saying if you get over 10% of the operating budget. Because as I recall, Suzanne, when that went through, we were holding back like 17%. Do you remember? That was the
Yes.
Taxpayer Association.
That's not what that says.
So
You just read it. It says up to 10% of the operating budget.
Can I ask a,
Yeah.
can I ask a, so I think I understand what you said. I understand the idea that if we had, I'm just making it up, $33 million budget, let's assume 10% fell out the bottom, you got 3.3 million, we could wipe that right out and buy down the tax rate, and then next year have a, oh my goodness.
Yep. And I
We don't
believe-
want to do that as a matter of policy.
Right, right.
Okay, and I believe that we should have the flexibility to say that's not a good idea, we're not going to do it.
Correct.
Okay, so then there's another part of the question, which is, $33 million, 10% falls out the bottom at the end of the audit, and we say to ourselves, and this is where I look at it. Tell me if I'm wrong here. I asked Steve a couple of days ago. I said, Steve, what happened financially to us when Haynes Hill Road, went south? What happened to us when North Wolfeboro went south? What happens if we lose a major piece of infrastructure? Where do we get the money to pay for that? And the answer I think I heard was, it's coming out of my operating budget, but I have to go deeper, it's
It
coming
says
someplace else.
No greater
Right?
than.
Which means we'd have to tap into the unrestricted fund balance.
No, you can't without permission from
The voters.
the voters or
So then
Supreme
we'd be in a
Court.
deficit, and we'd have to go back out and ask
Yeah.
for permission to do it.
Yes, we'd have to.
So
the-
I just want to make sure we set this thing with the understanding of what risks we have, consistent with up to 10%, but mindful that we don't want to zero out the balance and then find ourselves in a big
Right.
tax spike.
Well, I thought this article that you had was very good in telling us why you'd want to keep it. And one of the main reasons is the taxes come in.
Right.
The timing.
We have to keep on spending and spending. And if we don't have enough of the unassigned fund balance, we'd have to go out and borrow. I thought your son Brody made it very clear at the deliberative session.
What
This one
what
did
Yeah,
too.
and I
What
think-
Linda's showing us is a sawtooth chart. Revenues come in, they go down, they come in, but our expenses kind of just go like that all throughout the year.
See, I read this completely different. I read this as they're saying that we need to keep 10% of our general fund, that amount, in an unassigned fund balance, and anything more than that goes back to the taxpayers. And I would like a legal opinion on that if that's what this warrant article says.
I offered, can we wait? I don't know why we keep talking about fund balance. We won't be doing anything with fund balance until we get to set the tax rate. So let's start over the summer, going over these documents, having work sessions with people, with the selectmen,
I'm
with
fine.
staff. I mean, we keep, you want a legal opinion on something, that's technically a petition warrant article, which is really only advisory. You can choose to use it.
Right.
The voters have reaffirmed it, so I believe you should, but,
Yep.
I mean, it's two different things. The DRA is also using the school and the county to come up with their 8%, and I'd like to show you that, because what they're saying is we should have 8% of 44 million, which is not even our money. It has county money in there.
How can we do that, right? How do you do that?
That's their calculation.
Yeah, but it's not our
I
money.
can show you.
No, I understand, but it's not
Because
our money.
they believe that we need to have a reserve of some percentage, 5 to 17%, and we're targeting 8 on that 44 million. It's in the tax rate that the DRA puts out. And
I think that's great. I think that is it. And maybe we do it as a work session, because I think we all have a lot of opinions on this.
I agree, and I just want to show you both sides, but when I hear 8 and 10 and 8 and 10, you're talking about different things.
Yeah.
So let me show you the different things, and then you make the decisions. I'm not trying to sway you either way. I'm not trying to have you pick, and if 8's not the target number this town wants, then change
Yeah, we could talk.
FIN 007.
Yes.
I mean, that's definitely what you can do, but they're two independent things. Thank you for,
Thank you,
Casey.
Casey.
Oh, I got it.
All right. Is there anything else underneath here?
Yeah, the only other thing is that I would like to include into last week's minutes and this week's minutes, a letter an email that was sent to me from DRA that outlined the necessity for maintaining a healthy fund balance, because I think that email that the board all received, they received it in '23 and they received it just again recently, shows and explains what can potentially happen if you do not keep a healthy fund balance, and I think that's important looking at our fund balance policy going forward.
I agree.
Well, I think, to me, that really needs to be attached to the minutes. I think it was in 2023, because when I went, it was not attached. And that was the discussion that we were having, was that letter. And I would like to have that included in some of the documents that Casey brings forward.
Okay.
When we talk
I would-
about
I would-
it. But I would like it attached to the minutes where we had a large discussion about that exact, and it was 2000, I can't find it right now, I've missed it all in my papers. I'll see if I can find it.
Well, so there's no
Oh.
reason why we can't attach it to the minutes in two different locations.
I was going to ask that question. So this is, just for clarity, Brian, this is the Adam, I apologize if I mispronounce your name, Adam, Denoncourt
Yeah.
from DRA, December 15th. Is that the one you're talking about?
Correct.
Warrant Article 18, partial disallowance. So if that's the memo, and it's 2.5 pages, the ask, I think your ask is, can we attach this to these current minutes of this board meeting we're having today? And Linda saying, yeah, we probably should attach it to the minutes of the meeting way back when. I have no objection to doing both.
I just really think it needs to be put on, attached to that. And if we attach it to this set of minutes, we don't need to attach it to the prior set of minutes and this.
Okay, so this
That's-
one and the
Because
23rd.
we're talking about it.
So-
And that's what I think is important.
So
that
for
you're having-
clarity, we're going to attach it to tonight's minutes.
And to the minutes from,
The 20th, it was in June 2023, I think it was. I had that minutes here, but I shuffled things around so much I can't find them right now.
Okay.
all right.
Oh, June 28th, 2023. were the- Yep, June 28th,
Summertime.
2023 was when we had the discussion. I went out on the website, that was not attached, and
Yeah.
that's what should be attached.
Well, I just got a clarification issue. We're talking about a June 28th, 2023 board meeting, but this memo didn't come out until December 2023. I don't think we can
Yeah, you can't
attach it to
attach it
previous
to June
minutes.
28th.
Well, I thought we were talking about it. I'll go back and read those.
All I'm looking at, Linda, is
All Jim's saying is this.
Okay,
Dates
I
aren't
will,
in the
let me
line.
go back, all right.
Okay.
I thought he read that in these minutes. So let's go back and look at that.
So it's on tonight's minutes, at minimum. Okay, good, thank you.
All right, I'll go back. It may have been another set, I thought, all right. We'll attach it to this.
Okay.
I think that that was another set of minutes for something else. All right, now I've lost my agenda. Does that take care of everything under fund balance?
got to
Here comes
vote the
Casey.
policy, right?
Well, I just want to also say that Suzanne sent something to Amy, and it was given out to you electronically yesterday and in paper copy tonight. So, right?
I'm assuming that she'll speak to it under
Okay,
public.
well, I'm just saying that was part of, no, she wanted to attach it to last meeting also, so. Amy put it in there. It was
Yeah,
handed out
it's
in your
common
paperclip
minds.
tonight.
Some of it is.
Some of it is. Yep.
Yeah, and then there were some things
Thank
that
you,
you look at. Are you going to speak to that? Okay, then when she speaks to it, I don't want to just all of a sudden start attaching things to minutes. When you get up and talk to it, then we can attach what you said.
Gotcha.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the voter's guide. What happened here is, it was sent out to you, I had looked at a voter's guide that Jim had done. Amy started just retyping the warrant articles. I went in and talked to Casey, and Casey and I talked to Pat, and then the question was whether it would make more sense just to use the sample ballot. And one of the concerns was when we type, and every time we type, then there are errors, and then you got to proof. And when you finally proof the sample ballot, if we got a lot of copies of the sample ballots and had them around, from Casey's memo, it sounds like we would not be able to get a sample ballot in the Granite State News. So I don't know how other people feel, what kind they would like. I felt the one that Jim had done was something that you could quickly see. You could see, okay, that's the cost, that's the purpose, that's the vote, and it would be a quick way to do it without having going through and reading everything. So it's up to the board where we want to go from here.
So Amy's not here to defend herself, Madam Chairman. What was her recommendation?
It wasn't, she started to put together by typing the warrant articles, just retyping them. And one of the things that happen when you retype, you make errors. And so then you get another document. I won't tell you the number of times we read the sample ballot to make sure that we had gotten every error. And then somehow we got an older draft, and we had some of the same. And it took us a while to get a perfect one. And so she was just typing it in, but I think there was a warrant article missing. It's hard just retype all that. And the concern was every time you retype it, the chances for errors just increase.
So I'm reading something here from Amy here. Amy sent a note looking for us to choose between the voter's guide as is done in the past or print and insert a sample ballot in the Granite State News.
Well, there's a memo here about prices and stuff, too.
Yeah. But I'm trying to just get to her recommendation, and then we can figure out the price. Either option, we are cutting it close, getting the voter's guide in hands before the 11th. Okay. If I understood her memo correctly, I think, was Pat Waterman kind of saying just print the sample ballot in the Granite State News as well? Was the town clerk kind of saying that? I think it says that here.
You're reading it.
Voter's guide would greatly reduce, the voter's guide option would be, staff preference is to print the sample ballot. Everyone is, I'm using Amy's words, okay, salivating for it anyway. As soon as it gets here, we can print copies like crazy. God bless Amy. We found the voter's guide to be difficult to get correct information produced. Last year, the Granite State News printed the wrong year. For the first time, we seem to always have errors. So without going into all of this, I think what Amy was saying is staff, whomever that is, was saying, let's do a sample ballot.
I think that's what I said.
Let's do it.
Well, the problem is the sample ballot, where we are in time, cannot go in the paper. and this decision is ours. You know, we played around with it, and so the question is, do we not do a guide at all? And we just use the sample ballot because we're not going to be able to get it in the paper in time.
So here's an option. Let's use the sample ballot, and then we could have one voter's guide on the town website, and people can look at their sample ballot, and if they have questions, they go to the town website, they look at the voter's guide that's there electronically, and it would explain some information for them.
Well, I would say that the voter's guide has less information than the sample ballot.
It does.
Well, there was a copy sent out. That's what this thing came out, because it doesn't have all the wording, like they can accept grants and all that other stuff that comes out. It just does the purpose.
So if they have the sample ballot, that has all the wording, and it has all that, and then if they go to the guide and it kind of puts it into more layman's terms, and they just have this online as a second piece of information, we don't have to print out a ton of this. I mean, it's right there. So that gives them two different things to look at, a sample ballot and the guide's just electronically on our website.
Casey's running up to the microphone again.
If I may, Amy has been talking to Kingswood Press, and they said, checking it in, and this is today, Wednesday at 4:42, are we trying to get this done tomorrow? I have a driver lined up who can take this to Mass on Friday, which is where the printer is. If you need to get this in to the newspaper, just let us know as soon as possible so we can schedule press time tomorrow. So it does sound like if we give them the okay tonight. Amy did write back saying, Yvonne, so if I tell this is a go tonight, you could do this tomorrow, and she hasn't answered yet. But based on what she said at 4:42,
Okay, that's after this.
yeah.
So here's the big question. Do we have a sample ballot
Yes.
Yes.
that came in?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, what do you want to do, board?
I would do a sample ballot and then put the voter's guide on the website as backup. Jim already wrote it.
No.
No, I haven't wrote
No, he
it.
hasn't
I've
written
been
it.
out.
No, this was 2023. I found it in my file just so you could get a look at what a voter's guide had been. And part of the reason we did the voter's guide is the Taxpayers Association, that flyer, they used to say, vote yes on this, no, and they would have a place where you could check, and people were coming in with that. And the town wanted to get their own guide and have people looking at what they were saying.
So I'll amend that. Let's do a sample ballot, and then, if we have time, we could do an electronic voter's guide also, so that people would have more backup information, or maybe we only do it on the ballots, on the warrant articles that are more confusing. But we could always add that after the fact, but I think the sample ballot is fine.
Me too.
Well, I think people are used to seeing it in person, in the newspaper or wherever. If we can do that again, that's what I'm in favor of.
Brad?
Yeah, I agree with Dave. I think, people are used to seeing the voters' guides there. So I'd be in favor of going that route again.
Putting in a regular to do it, not a sample ballot, but write it up as the voter's guide as we've done in the past. That's
Which I
great.
believe that's what the Kingswood Press
Yeah.
alternative is for the 2,500 inserts, correct?
No, it's my understanding that that's the voters, the ballot, the sample
Sample
ballot.
ballot.
It's saving money.
Well, I think either way, we need to get it out to the public. And Brian, not everybody has a computer.
No, but it's getting
There's still a
more.
lot of people here that don't. So they depend on the newspapers, whatever, to get their information
Well,
still.
that's why I'm saying do both. Do a sample ballot and.
I don't have a problem with that, but I'm just
I
telling
think the
you,
amount of
know.
time it would take us now to get a voter's guide together. I started to do a couple of them and then all the proofing. I'm comfortable inserting the sample ballot, and we'll get a read. We've done voter's guide, now we'll get a read on how they like the sample ballot, and that doesn't mean that's what we have to do next year. I think where we are and everything that needs to be done, if Kingswood Press can make that, we have a sample ballot, let's get that out. Is that okay?
Yep, I'm good with that.
You want a motion for that? I'll make
Hey,
that motion.
thank
I'll
you,
second it.
Dave.
I'll second it.
Oh, nope, I already have one over here. I've got Dave and I've got Brad. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. I think people want to go home.
That's a good idea.
All right, where did I put all that stuff? Okay, any other business?
Yes.
Okay, Dave.
I'd like to know what the purpose of this is, that Brian handed out.
Oh, so, under other business, this is mine. What I wanted to do was, has been some confusion at some meetings and the deliberative session of whether or not Frank Goodwin Road is a private road or if it's an easement. So I did a little bit of research, just digging around, found out where in 71 it was approved as Wigan Road, and then found out that it was approved as a roadway with an easement connecting Frank Goodwin
That's
to
right.
Dudley in 86, and then found out that the road name changing committee changed the name, and then found out that the fire and safety has it listed as a private road along with Dudley Road, and then found out that it was reaffirmed in 2012, this was the only one I could find signatures from the Board of Selectmen, and Linda and Dave were on that, and then others, and who are the other three? I can't read it.
It is Sarah Silk, and I think it's Chuck Storm
And Dave Bowers.
And Dave Bowers.
and Dave Bowers.
Okay, and then it was reaffirmed again that Frank Goodwin and Dudley Road were named roads, private roads in town, in 2017, because we do it every 5 years, I believe, and then
This is the E911.
yeah, and it was reaffirmed again in 2022, and I probably signed that one. I didn't bother going to 2017 or 2022. So I just wanted to clear up, to make sure there was no confusion that Dudley and Frank Goodwin Road are named private roads in the town of Wolfeboro, that they're not an easement. There is an easement.
That's what I was saying.
That connects the two.
Yes, that is an easement, and that was
And that
what
is an
it's talked
easement
to.
that is registered with the Carroll County Registry of Deeds in the state of New
Well,
Hampshire.
that was what we were talking about, was that easement between the two.
Well, I was told that Frank Goodwin Road wasn't platted by multiple people,
Well, that
and I was
wasn't-
told that it was only an easement, that it wasn't a legal private road, and so I just wanted to clear that up.
And there's also on there, Dudley Road has
An easement from Lakes Region Conservation Trust.
no, has a easement that came from Mary McBride.
Correct.
Who became Mary McLean, who owned a lot 48. So those people going into Lakes Region Conservation Trust have a right
Correct.
to go over that. It wasn't the goodness of the heart of the Dudley Association. That's what I wanted to kind of clean up on that one. Somebody emailed me that out of nowhere, it's just arrived.
And it's also, it's strange too, because Lakes Region Conservation Trust, it says their use can trigger repairs and maintenance on that Dudley Road also.
You need
That's
to,
what the
I do-
easement says.
okay.
I just want
here
to
we
know,
go.
because this was set up originally, these are all the names of roads in Wolfboro for 911 purposes,
Right.
Yeah.
okay? So every road in the town is on here, or in this whole list, but these 2 pages, I found at least 19 on one page and 20 on the other that are all private roads and
Yeah,
not.
it is a private road. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Frank Goodwin is a private
I
road.
just didn't want people to
Yeah.
know that that's a town road
Yeah,
listed in
no.
there.
That's why the ones with T are town, the ones that aren't are private. But what the confusion was is I was told that Frank Goodwin Road was never platted, that it was never accepted as a private road in town, and that it was just an easement, and I had to do some research to show that, no, it is a named private road in the town of Wolfeboro.
Okey smoky.
Right, and the other thing is that we did do our layout of a new town road and put that, that policy together, and in that policy, it cites all the RSAs on 231 on why we are doing that. And there's a rumor going around that the Board of Selectmen did that policy just to make it so it was hard for roads to be accepted. We had Westwood accepted in 2018. In 2023, we asked for $139,000 to have a new truck and a new, and get another staff person. And then in 2003, we put together that policy to help people go through the process. So I want the public to understand it was all part of the Board of Selectmen's attempt to make it easier for roads to be accepted, and also to be able to have some kind of consistency in how we handled them all. And it's all based on the state RSA, and as you said before, we have to follow this. And that's what that policy is all about. I did find, finally, in my papers, that letter should be attached to the December 18th, 2023 minutes. I had the wrong.
December 18th.
December, because his letter was December 15, 2023, and the minutes was 2018, 2023, and it should be with that, because that was...
We'll put it there, and we'll put it in this.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Any other business? Town manager's report?
Just a couple of items. First of all, some of you may be aware, billing and collections office will be closed between 1 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon to mirror what is happening with the town clerk's office. We have a staffing issue within the office. One of our firefighters has been accepted into the Massachusetts Task Force 1, which is a specialized rescue team that gets deployed nationally and internationally for various disasters. He'll be participating as part of the planning function. It's Max McClaskey. He will be what's referred to as a technical information specialist, which means he does a lot of computer-based system work to organize data for the next operational period. It's an excellent resource to bring back to Wolfeboro for training. Requirements for him to be on this team is 40 hours of annual training, 20 hours of service work annually, and participate in 1 3-day mobilization exercise and 1 fly-away exercise every 3 years. Additionally, I think people are aware at this point, code enforcement officer is leaving. His last day is February 28th. I'm working on an interim plan right now. I hope to have more information early next week on that. And lastly, you may notice if you look around, some of the painting that was requested to be done has been done over the past couple weeks, so that is off the list. That's all I have.
It looks nice, the painting. The radiators were pretty chipped. Okay, committee reports. I think I'll start down this way with Ryan.
So we had milfoil that we talked about, where we accepted the grant to remediate exotic and invasive plants in Back Bay. We had an EDC meeting, and the EDC, their new newsletter came out, and very informational. The EDC is doing a fantastic job advertising the town election and the voters information session, and they're going to have another business event.
April 7th, Monday, isn't it?
Can't wait.
Yeah, and that will be at Trenta, and that, you can see that in their newsletter, or call the town hall. And we had an energy committee meeting, and there was primarily, the big discussion was solar. And in the pending project at the library, and a discussion with Barry Muccio about the next contract that will be coming down the road for our power distribution, and where we will fall with cost on that. And that's about all I had.
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, one meeting that I'd like to just feature for folks. Last Thursday, the 13th, it's on YouTube. It's on Wolfeboro Community TV YouTube. There was a police commission meeting. There is, as voters know, there is a petition out there to potentially abolish police commission. I would encourage anybody that has any, wants to learn more about what's going on, tune into that meeting. I think there's good information there. It may convince you one way or another. But there was a good dialogue between people at the podium and people sitting up there. It was worth the time. I think it was an hour-and-a-half meeting, probably the longest police commission meeting I've been to in a while. But for voters that want to learn more about the issues, or at least some of the issues, I'd encourage you to look at that. It's worthwhile. Thank you.
Okay. Brad?
Yeah, let's see, last week we had a Wolfeboro Waters meeting. We attended there. Last night there was a planning board meeting, a fairly short meeting. We went over the explanations, the warrant articles, which they'll be getting hold of Wolfeboro Community TV to film a presentation in the next few days here to get that out. And then this morning we had a Wolfeboro Community TV board meeting.
Dave?
I had none because of snowstorms. They hit on the nights of the meetings, so they've been postponed and moved out a couple of weeks.
Okay. We've already talked about the milfoil. I attended that with Brian. I had a Friends of Pop Whalen meeting. I met with the Russ Pond Association and DES on the Russ Pond 319 grant. It was disappointing. It looks like they may have to go back to the drawing board. The library trustees meeting, I'd like to give you some update on the usage. A 19% increase in the use of meeting rooms. Hoopla, which is one of their online sites, it's up 40%. Patron count is 3%. Public computer use is 30%. Overdrive, ebooks are up 66%, and magazines are up 66 also. So they just continue as we've come out of COVID. It just keeps on. More people are using that lovely new library. I was at the EDC meeting, and Brian filled you in on that. I went to Wolfeboro Waters, and we heard from the Lake Winnipesaukee Alliance that they are going to do some stream testing, and they were asking whether we could get some members of our committee to work with them. We are hoping to get some, but we also do our own stream testing. So it looks like we're going to do more stream testing coming in. What they're trying to find out is the nutrient loads coming down those streams, and it would give us information to decide which areas we may want to do best management practices to in the future. It was disappointing to hear that Kate Hastings, the head of DES Cyanobacteria Division, has resigned. There is a hiring freeze on the state. So Wolfeboro Waters is going to review the town cyanobacteria notification policy and see what changes may need to take place because of the change at DES. So that's all I have.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The stream testing
Yep.
notion here, how do we identify those?
Well, they were the streams that were identified in the Wolfeboro Bay Management Plan, or they would be the Watershed Management Plan, or the Crescent Lake.
Would it be Winter Harbor as well?
Yes, it would be into
All right,
Winter
so,
Harbor.
so the theory here is these
Fact-
watershed management plans that have been published, somehow there's going to be a subset of streams, hopefully from each one, or some subset that you're going to look at and test?
That's what the Lake Winnipesaukee Alliance is going to do.
Good.
Wolfeboro Waters are doing now 2 streams that go into Winter Harbor, and they are doing a stream that goes into Wolfeboro Bay. And it's a program that the Wolfeboro Waters started last year, and they're developing more. They're going to get a second gauge. That is different from the Lake Winnipesaukee
effort.
Alliance, because they're doing it throughout their management plans, and they were looking for help from us, and they will take a stream from one of their management plans
Okay.
to do.
So that's a separate effort, but Wolfeboro Waters, if I understand you correctly, is got their eyes on 2 streams heading into Winter Harbor, 1 stream
Correct.
going into Wolfeboro Bay.
Yes,
That's pretty cool.
yeah. And the 2 streams going into Winter Harbor are near Whitegate Road, and trying to deal with that whole area.
Oh.
Okay, I could tell you it's T40 and T20. Does that help you?
T23 would probably be better.
Okay. Any questions from the press?
I don't see her on.
Okay. Public input?
Suzanne Ryan, taxpayer. Couple of things. At the deliberative session, I said I must have fallen asleep about the fund balance being used for roads. Well, I misspoke. I wasn't asleep, because that very year I put in a second warrant article, citizens petition, to reaffirm the first warrant article on fund balance. And it passed overwhelmingly, 1,000 to 500, as did the previous one. So the voters made it very clear, although I hear a debate about what that warrant article says, but they made it very clear they wanted something done, and they didn't want the undesignated fund balance to go to roads and equipment, which obviously it did with the last 3 warrant articles in 22, 23, and 24. And that's what, I think it was the warrant article in 23 that prompted me. I woke up and said, wait a minute, well, they can't be doing this. So I reinserted that warrant article. I'm not going to have an argument with you guys about what percent goes where. That's your job. It's been made clear, I think, by the voters that they want to make sure there's enough fund balance left to take care of the town. And if there isn't, we can hold a special town meeting, which is not unheard of in this town. It happens every once in a while. But they also want enough left over to offset the tax rate. So how you get from here to there is, I'm not gonna persist on that. And I want to preface what I'm going to say, that whatever has been done has been legal. It isn't anything not legal. The DRA has looked at these warrant articles, these citizens petition, and had said they're within their realm of being correct. I do find issue with that you guys all signed these MS forms, and nobody picked up on what was going on with the shortfall and the fund balance and all that. So shame on you for that. But mistakes happen. But something I heard tonight, I had heard twice before. Before I go there, let me read something to you. I've been thinking about this all day. It's driving me crazy. So, Let's go back to this one, 22. Fund balance. As you know, I've just been like a dog with a bone on this. I keep coming back to it and back to it and back to it. And so at the 2023 deliberative session, Town Roads, Article number 25, there again, I brought up the subject about questioning the unassigned fund balance being used for this. Mr. Pino replied that last year they used the unassigned fund balance for a fire truck purchase and other times was used to buy down the tax rate. He stated that it is preferred not to use it to buy down the tax rate since it can cause a spike in the tax rate. Mrs. Ryan stated she would encourage the town not to do this. The funny thing of it is about this fund balance and tax rate is you say you don't want spikes in it, but you can use this to buy down the tax rate, but you're so busy making sure that there's no spike that you put warrant articles in that say no effect on the tax rate, 0. Well, those pass lickety split, no problem. It's not being transparent by using the fund as you have. I know you're not going to going forward because I think you're fed up with it. But it's not being transparent when you put in warrant articles 0. Example for bonds. 0 effect on the tax rate the first year. Yeah, that can happen because it doesn't always go out for bond for the very first year. But we've got one in there this year that goes 0 for the second year and then like 3 cents for the third year. It's misleading to people. They think, the average person doesn't follow this stuff like I try to. They think, oh, it's not going to cost us anything for 3 years. But then they get slammed the third year and fourth year when it, first year is interest and then the following years is interest and principal and they get slammed. I don't know what can be done about that, but these 0 zeros on the tax rate is not a good thing. What was I going to say? I think some of this came to light when we overspent our budget and the DRA got involved and so this year I was trying to find out what the unassigned fund balance was. And I heard repeated back, oh, we can't find that because it's not set until July. Well, it's calculated as a revenue. It's called a revenue. You look at your last page on your MS form and there's assigned balances and stuff, and it's under the heading of revenue. Can't be spent, it's not cash, but they can give an estimated amount, which they do. So, I don't know. I think that the thing that bothers me the most about this whole thing, and I just heard it stated here again tonight, well, it's only advisory. Those warrant articles from the citizens' petition on the fund balance, it's only advisory. Well, legally, yeah, it's advisory. But you got people voting that's saying, some people could say, call it a mandate. I call it the will of the voters. The voters sent you all a message twice, and it's gotten screwed up. I can see it getting fixed now, and good luck when you start fighting. And the warrant article says not to exceed, not up to. Not to exceed. 2 different words. That aside, I am glad to see Paul and Brian, although they're not actually in sync, but they're talking about their concerns about how we pay for water and sewer. What percent goes from where and what the general fund pays. And I'm glad to hear that discussion because all these years, I've been on the capital improvements program. I can't tell you the percent. I can't tell you the percent on Pop Whalen. I don't think that was ever decided, what percent we decided what we're going to pay for the building. There was a warrant article that says we're going to pay our share for that building. But I don't find anything that says operation and maintenance. I'll have to see if I can knock on John Burt's door.
Well, what I was saying is there was a warrant article the prior year that asked the voters whether they were willing to take the capital projects from the Pop Whalen Arena out of taxation, and it didn't give a percentage.
I don't see it written that way.
Can I weigh in on
don't get
that?
it out.
I was watching, I was in a hotel room watching TV when the town manager gave a presentation to the budget committee, and then it came to the deliberative session. And the presentation had, remember, Jimmy, you had a background of bubbles? A little bubble background on this thing. And in that presentation was the recommendation of what percent of the debt would be carried by the POP versus carried by the general taxpayer. Now, you could say that was implied consent as opposed to explicit consent, but it was there. Was it 86%, Jim?
I believe it was.
Yeah, and it was in a bubble chart, but he gave a PowerPoint presentation. So the issue, if I hear you correctly, is we need to move to explicit consent on things as opposed to implied consent on things. I'm okay with that. That's a cleanup.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
I agree. I'm not here to argue with Pop
Well, let me give you
But
some.
you got to read the language in the question that people voted on, not something up on a screen.
And I could read you this, but I'm not going to take the time, but go to the March 2021 annual report, and Article 13, the Pop Whalen Enterprise Fund Advisory, and it asked them whether they are willing to make changes in how we do the infrastructure capital expense being funded by the general taxation. So it's there, and that we did prior to the warrant article coming out, and that's when we were talking. I was saying, well, we did this for the Pop Whalen Enterprise Fund to get it to understand where they want to be on the sewer. We should put another similar type of a warrant article out.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you because I don't have it in front of me. I'll take you at your word. But I'm concerned about water and sewer, and I got to tell you, when they were talking about e-snow and
Yep, I remember that one.
e-snow and the Quimby land, buying the Quimby land to put in some sort of
That was the eminent
facility
domain.
there.
Yep.
And round and round and round we went. In fact, we had a special town meeting on that subject.
2005, yep.
I cannot say that the town was wholeheartedly in favor of taking on whatever abstract percent that we pay. To this day, I don't know how that's calculated, and I don't think there was ever a vote taken for that.
Sure.
And I'm glad that you two are going to dig into it and find out how it's structured and should it be restructured. I think that's a good discussion to have. But, so I got some homework for you. Working capital targets, enterprise funds. I'll just leave you all a copy and say good night for now, and you can be sure I'll be
You're going to grade the paper when
back.
we're done? You're going to give us a grade on our paper?
What?
You're going to grade the papers when we do our homework? What do you got?
John?
And good evening, folks. John Thurston here. I've got a couple of items I'd like to touch base on. I was happy to hear that the aquatic weed control is going to be paused for a year. There's a couple things that I don't know if the public are aware of when they do the aquatic weed control. When I was a young kid, my grandparents lived on Back Bay by the big rock where the switch for the track was. I used to go there during the day and go fishing, and when I was going fishing, there was a lot of structure in the water, and there was a lot of structure to provide cover for the fish and to cool the water down. And since the aquatic weed control has been put in there, if you go down there by the water, you'll notice that It's all bare, right straight down to the bottom. The water heats up much quicker. There's no structure. The activity for the aquatic life of the lake is dying in that fashion. So I think there's a happy balance between killing much and allowing the life of the lake to grow so that there's that balance. The second part I'd like to touch base on is a couple of years ago, the Downtown Grill was doing a project, and I was down there at the time, and this revolves around the sewer. So there was a pipe that took the sewer from the Downtown Grill to deposit into the sewer system, but the pipe was broken off. And the sewer was running into the drain, into the drainage, and running out the front of the docks. And right in front of those docks, there's a little steel pipe, and there was a bunch of pickerelweed that grew up there that year. And once they fixed that pipe, the pickerelweed just disappeared. So there might have been some good pulling that year, but a lot of the contributing factors for that growth down there was the fact that the sewer was running into the lake from that broken pipe. And to the next point is, why should the sewer ratepayers take on all the responsibility? I didn't hear anybody on the board tonight say, because it's about the quality of our lake. The quality of our lake is the other half of the X factor. Our ratepayers pay to keep the lake clean, but our town has a fiduciary responsibility to allow our natural resources to bring our people to our town, because if we don't, our town's going to die in that respect. So I'm here to say, I don't believe that the ratepayers should pay the full brunt. The town should pay a lot of the project, and the people that are home listening, they should understand the balance also. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
All righty. Is there any, come on up.
Hi, my name's Carrie Webster. I'm the owner of Outwell Acupuncture and Holistic Health.
Can you get the phone a little, a microphone, so I can hear you?
No problem. I'm in front of you tonight because I'm facing a hardship with my business currently, and from my New Hampshire State Small Business Advisor, not knowing where else to go, suggested I get in front of you all. So my business started in February of 2021 over at 16 Elm Street as an acupuncture and over medicine clinic. It was a much needed service in the area. We grew very, very quickly. And in 2022, 8 Elm Street came up for sale right across the parking lot from where I was. Many of you probably know 8 Elm Street was the clickety-clack.
Clickety-clack.
So I was interested in buying that building to renovate it and move in and expand the business. So I went to the town at the time, Tavis was the planning director, Jason the CEO, and I asked them for some advice on what I was trying to do, wanting to make that a clinic, needing to expanding the parking in that area in order to make that happen. They pulled a file, which I did provide some information to Amy. She said she would distribute to you all. If you got that, okay. So in that file was a plan that was done by the Clickety-Clack, you can tell by looking at it, many, many years ago, to do in addition to the building and to add parking. So it was the advice that I was given from the planning director at the time, that because half of that renovation, that building addition had been done, that meant that the rest of the plan was what he called vested, meaning that there would be no problem in adding that parking in. So great, I left there with the last question of, should I be confident in making this huge purchase, knowing that I can do what I need to do in my business? And he said yes. So I bought the building November of 2022. In February of 2023, we started the renovations, the first phase being doing the building itself, turning it into a clinic. That was completed in July. We moved in, continued to grow. Business is thriving. Where currently I employ 8 other people besides myself, and we see about 90 patients a week. So it's time to put that parking in. When I bought the building, I made an agreement with the gentleman that owned 16 Elm that I could continue to share his parking lot until that parking lot was ready for 8 Elm. And he was more than willing because he, being the previous owner of 8 Elm, had also been told that that parking lot was good to go, you can be built. Now where I'm at, we applied for the shoreline permit from the state and got that approved in October. That's in that packet as well. I went through a lot of work with an engineering company to get the plans drawn up to get that permit approved, doing all the pervious pavement and all the necessary things for shoreline zoning. We then applied for a site plan with the town, met with the planning board as a preliminary consultation on December 3rd, went to the TRC meeting December 4th. To my knowledge, everybody at that meeting had signed off, except for the current planning director. She did not attend the meeting. At the planning board preliminary consultation, it was suggested that we might need a variance because it is in the shoreline zone and adding parking there is not part of that. So we went on to try to reach out to the current planning director. I understand the interim and lack of hours there, so it was a time span of not having any communication whatsoever. Finally got an answer from her on January 21st that yes, we'd have to go and get a variance from the zoning board because in the shoreline zone, only residential use is permitted. But I have a commercial building in the residential use only zone is what I'm being told. So that's fine. I am by all means a rule follower. I would go in front of the zoning board, reached out to the engineering firm I've been working with and my attorney for some representation and was told by both that they will not go in front of the zoning board. In fact, I've been told that no attorney here in town will go in front of the zoning board because regardless of whether or not they think that this is something that is worthy of a variance, in their own opinions or interpretations of the zones, that the board is, in the past couple of years, just not approving anything, and they suggested it would be a waste of my money and their time to even bother. So this is where the hardship part comes for me. I don't know how to represent myself in front of the board if I can't even get professionals willing to do it. I don't see that it would be worthy of my time or become a profitable outcome for me. I'm now at the point where the agreement of shared parking is going away because they have now filled the spot that I used to rent and they have enough of their own patients and clientele being seen at those businesses that there's not enough space for us all to share it anymore. So the added cost of the engineer that I've been working with, the attorney, now with the lack of parking, I feel like the only next step would be you're gonna have to relocate. I don't have the funds for that with all the money I just put into renovating this building. And I'm also worried that I would not be able to sell this building going forward because I can't think of any business that would need a commercial building of this size with no parking. So I'm kind of stuck and that's where I'm at. And like I said, it was just advised that I come to you all for your wisdom on somehow moving forward. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming in and telling us about it. We'll have to do some thinking.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience? Any other public input? Hearing none. Dave?
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
Okay. Dave, Brad, all in favor? Aye.